Anthony, let me start with you. With Kawhi signing this extension with the Clippers, do you think that Kawhi at some point can put the Clippers into a championship contending window?
At some point, yes, but I don't think that window is going to be very. I think it's going to be a very short window because the West is just getting stronger by the minute. I mean, you look at these teams that either missed the playoffs this year or the Warriors were in the playoffs but didn't win a series for, basically if it was just came down to a one game scenario or anything like that. So, yes, I do think that they can definitely win a championship. They definitely have to get the right pieces around it. I think they have to get like the situations around them have to be all like in timeline with one another to go into a championship. But it's just going to be hard. I mean, you're looking at Golden State is going to come back and they're going to be good next year. I mean, hopefully Clay comes back and everything goes well. We don't know if Kawhi is going to play next year as well because of his ACL. And I mean, the guy is he has a straight face every single time, so you don't know what he's going to say or what he's going to do. So I could see it where he comes back maybe at halfway next year, and who knows what will happen. Maybe he decides to, you know, say screw it, and I'm not going to come back for next year, and I'll come back to the following year. So there's a good possibility, but it's just going to be tough, man. I mean, by the time everything comes to fruition, the West is just going to be tough. I mean, the Mavericks are going to get better. I know Kevin's going to be excited for that, but these teams are just going to go away. I was really shocked this year to find out how well Phoenix did throughout the entire season. Ultimately making it to the finals, but as these teams are getting better and Kawhi's getting older, and they're gonna have that window, but it's gonna be tough. I just if they make it, I don't know that they'll win it, but they'll definitely have a chance to do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I agree that they have the window. I disagree with it being a small window because I believe last season showed a lot for the Clippers. Paul George had a pretty good postseason run, obviously excluding some of those late game free throw misses. He kind of showed that he could shoulder the load. I know that a lot of times that pandemic P nickname kind of comes out a lot of times around the postseason or in clutch moments, but Paul George showed this season that that name is either not as common or no longer exists because he legitimately came out and said, I can carry this team. And they were legit a game away from going to an NBA Finals. And that's kind of crazy when was it 2 games? Did they lose in 6 or 7?
It was 6.
Mm-hmm. It was 6. So they were 2 games away from an NBA Finals appearance, and that was without their best player in Kawhi Leonard. Now, to a certain extent, I know Kyle and I have talked about this off the air. Kawhi, everyone knows what you're going to get from him. 25 plus, good defensive effort, 7 rebounds, maybe 10, depending on how that goes, and of course, like 4 to 6 assists, maybe on a good night, right? And of course, a couple of steals and maybe a block. Paul George is the question mark here in the locker room with, all right, are you going to get Paul George of Indiana? Are you going to get Paul George of his first year in LA when he couldn't hit the front side of the ocean in the postseason? But the Clippers team, as it is constructed right now, Terrence Mann, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard, and the rest of that team with Tyronn Lue as the coach, I would say that the window is a little bit more open than we're leading them to believe. Again, next season might be a little bit more of a question mark with Kawhi being out for either the majority of the year or the year itself. I mean, hey, Kyle and I thought that Giannis was going to be out for the entire finals, if not a good portion, and we were dead fucking wrong. So shit, who the hell knows what kind of rehab this man's going to do? But if Kawhi plays a good amount of the season this year, who's to say that the Clippers can't make a late season run? Obviously, he's going to have to get back into the groove. The team is going to have to get used to him being in the rotation and taking shots away from players that had to step up while he was away. But I don't think the Clippers are that far off from a championship. I mean, if you really think about it, if Kawhi was on that team, I think Kawhi goes to the finals. And if Kawhi plays in the finals this year, I think that, no disrespect to Giannis, I just think they would have had a lot more offensive consistency from the two of those players than Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And I know Devin dropped 40 twice, but there were a few games where Devin had very, very, very bad performances and inconsistencies shooting the basketball. So I think Kawhi's defense, Paul George's defense, that would have made a lot more of a stand than an undersized guard in Chris Paul and a non-defensive efficient Devin Booker. So I would say that window is a lot more open than we're anticipating.
I'm going to break it down to you like this. So the way that I see it is, I agree with you guys that I think the championship window is open for them. I just don't think they're going to be able to get a title. Just because the Clippers will be competitive in the Western Conference. I just don't think they have enough to get past all the way to the finals and potentially win a finals. And the reason why I look at it is this. So when I look at the Western Conference, going into next season, the Lakers are looking to bounce back after getting bounced out of the first round of the playoffs last year. You've got Golden State, who is bringing back Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and the Splash Brothers are going to be back once again. And I imagine they're going to have something to say about making their presence known in the Western Conference once again. You've got Denver, where you have Nikola Jokic, who's the reigning MVP. I imagine he's going to have another sensational year. You also have Jamal Murray coming back, and that duo between those two is always fun to watch. You've got Phoenix, who's a team on the rise. Granted, they didn't win the finals, but they got all the way to the finals this year. And then you could look at maybe like Dallas as a team on the rise as well, with Luka re-signing that max contract just a few days ago. I mean, that's a lot of teams to contend with.
Did you mention the Lakers?
I did at the beginning.
Okay, I'm double checking. I was sitting here like, this man skipped his own team.
No. I always got to mention them first. So when you look at the Western Conference, I mean, you're talking about 5-6 teams that are going to be right in it for the top of the Western Conference. So I think the Clippers are going to find themselves kind of like in the middle of the pack. I think they're going to be probably like a 3 seed, maybe a 4, kind of depending on, whether or not Phoenix can replicate the success that they had last year going into this next. And then maybe seeing a team like Denver kind of continuing their success from last year, even though they got destroyed by Phoenix in the second round. I just think that the Western Conference, by and large, is just too log jammed at the top. And I think the only way that the Clippers are going to win a title is a lot of these teams that I just mentioned are going to have to deal with some sort of injury issue that's going to allow the Clippers to be a worn down team or an injury riddled team at the top to get past them, to get into a situation where they could win a finals. And that would mean that Kawhi would have to stay healthy, Paul George would have to stay healthy, Reggie Jackson would have to stay healthy. By and large, the team would have to stay healthy enough to get past those top teams who may deal with some injuries to find themselves to getting into some sort of finals matchup. I don't really foresee that being the case. I can't really rely on Kawhi's health long term. Those knees have always been an issue, and now the fact that he's coming off of an ACL injury, I think it's going to hinder him to it. I think it'll hinder him to a certain extent. I don't know what I don't know what degree it will, but there's going to be some adjustment with him coming off of that injury. So I think for this season, I don't think it's in the cards for the Clippers this year. And I think it's only going to get tougher as it goes on, simply just because there are some very young teams like Phoenix and Denver to watch out over the next couple of years. And I didn't even mention Utah. I don't know if Utah is going to ever get to a finals either, but you can't rule them out either. So I just don't see it with the Clippers. I really don't. I think they're going to be there. I think they'll be in the mix. But do I think that they'll win one after Kawhi signs this, 4-year deal? No, I just don't see it.